Hi everybody, I'm Pamela Atwood, gerontologist, certified dementia practitioner, and certified laughter leader, and welcome back to our Confident Caregiver series. Today's show actually is in response to a viewer's question, and I thank Deb for putting this forward. It's a great question and one that I get asked a lot every 4 years. Yes, today's question is about voting. It seems to me that this question is especially pertinent. It should be pertinent every year, but it's especially pertinent in presidential election years. So as each year gets more and more heatedly debated and contested, I get more and more of these questions. So here's the question. Is it my responsibility to help mom get to vote, even though mom has advanced dementia? So it was a great question. And the way Deb described the conversation was her husband said, no, it's not your responsibility. She's not even registered. So how is this your responsibility? Does she even know who's running? And Deb said, but mom always voted. So what do? I take her to the doctor. Right. Mom can't always make her own appointments, but you still take her to the doctor. So here's the answer. Responsibility? No, maybe not. Ethical and moral responsibility because you're a daughter and an advocate for people with dementia? Maybe. Let's talk about it. So here's the deal. In most states, and I believe it is 23 states now, actually have some legislation specifically allowing and making a responsibility for everyone to facilitate the voting process, even if someone has a disability, and that includes cognitive disabilities. What does that mean? Okay, well, we can all figure out that if someone is physically disabled and cannot get to the voting booth, that we need to accommodate that and make some way for them to be able to exercise their right to vote. Well, this is not news, but in 1987, the Omnibus Reconciliation Act, which also has been called the Nursing Home Reform Act, although the actual piece of legislation included much more than just nursing home reform. But it's not new. 1987 specifically outlined residents in a nursing home have the right to vote. So that means that each year the activities directors, the therapeutic recreation directors in facilities all over America actually create opportunities to vote for the residents who live in long-term care facilities. This, although it started in nursing homes, of course now is also being sent out through assisted livings as well. And even in home care situations, many people are encouraged to work with the social workers or with their families to help facilitate their right to vote. In fact, most states have a new program which they call mobile polling. And basically what that is some sort of supervised absentee balloting process. So in the nursing home where I work, there is a opportunity for all residents to vote before the election. So we do them by absentee ballot. This requires an incredible amount of coordination. We have to not only notice who's new since the last year, but also then register them to vote, make sure that they're registered with their party preference, Democrat, Republican, or unaffiliated. If they are registered in a party, Democrat or Republican, they do, of course, get the opportunity to vote in primary elections as well. So last week in our facility where I work at Hebrew Healthcare, we actually had the Democratic primary for a probate judge primary in the town of West Hartford, Connecticut. And so we had specific trained volunteers come in, and it has to be bipartisan volunteers who come in. So we have someone from the registrar's office and trained bipartisan volunteers who come in to supervise the voting process. And it really is quite something, especially when you think about all of the rights that we have as Americans, being able to see this continue for older adults in general in an institution, although of course we try to make them as non-institutionalized as possible. These are great rights that we're still being able to help them exercise. Now, a lot of times people talk to me about, Mom's dementia is so significant. Can she really vote? Does she have the capacity? Well, here's the deal on that. Only a judge can take away someone's right to vote. In fact, even if someone has a legal guardian, meaning that a judge has determined them incapable of caring for themselves, we call them conservators, guardians, guardian in fact. I mean, there are a number of different terms depending on which state you live in. people who have a conservator or a legal guardian still retain the right to vote. It has to be a specific, in most states, it has to be a specific ruling by the judge that says this person is not capable of voting. Now, in some states, they say that any person who is, I don't even remember what it's called, but some states still call idiot or other kind of derogatory terms. Insane, I think, is one of them, people who are mentally insane. But anyone where they're mentally compus non mentis or whatever, I don't remember all the Latin terms, but in some states they still have old statutes that talk about that. However, it's very hard to prove that. So no one can challenge. It's not that you can't challenge it. You can challenge it in some states under some circumstances. But no voter has to prove their competence. So the only person who would say that a person is incapable of voting is that judge. Then the question is, how does that get carried out? So in a nursing home, they have the right to get help to vote, and they have the right to have an opportunity to vote. Now, that doesn't just mean that our therapeutic recreation directors have to facilitate a trip to the town hall or wherever the polling place is, but that also means that if the resident chooses that TRD to help them physically fill out the ballot, they have the right to do that. There are two groups of people who cannot assist a disabled person for voting, and they are the person's employer if he or she is still working, and if they are a member of a union, some other member of the union who is an officer or a agent of the union. If the helper cannot reliably determine, and this is in the documentation from the legal information that's out there, if the helper cannot reliably determine the voter's intent, he or she cannot cast a vote for that person. Now, as a dementia specialist, as someone who's done therapeutic recreation in long-term care facilities for almost 30 years of my career in one form or another, I'm here to tell you that that is done almost every year. It is so common, unfortunately, when we have family members who come in, and it's the family members. I mean, honestly, the staffs at nursing home facilities aren't doing this. They really are so afraid of doing something wrong when it comes to voting. But many, many times I've seen family members who come in and say, "Ma, you want the Democrat, right? Mom, you always voted Republican, party line, just pull that whole lever. Come on, Mom, we know you want the Republican." And the resident appears to be maybe cajoled, they're not even sure who they're voting for. And in that case, the family member is executing the vote for the person. It's very hard, again, to challenge those kinds of things. I will tell you that ethically, morally, we shouldn't be doing that as family members. Just because we know mom or dad would have wanted, or husband or wife or sister or brother or uncle or niece or whatever, whoever our loved one is that we're helping, if they cannot intentfully execute their vote, we shouldn't be doing it for them. It's very, very difficult to draw that line, but in your solar plexus, in your gut, when it's you voting and when it's them voting. What can you do to help that person? You can remind them who's running. You can remind them of conversations that you've had. You can show pictures of the candidates. You can do those kinds of things to help facilitate their memory. That's fine. But if they really aren't sure who they're voting for and they think they're voting for Eisenhower, that's not appropriate for you to just cast that vote, because that's what they would have wanted. So, is it, Deb and her husband, is it your responsibility to help mom vote? Yeah. As a daughter, I want you to encourage her to register. I want you to help facilitate that absentee ballot. Does she have to get up in the morning and go down to the polling station? No. Can you file an absentee ballot in her new registered voter town? Yes. If it's too much of a struggle and she's not into it and doesn't want to do it, you've met that obligation. Our right to vote always, always should be protected. And a lot of older adults have valued that more than many of their other rights. They fought for these rights. They won these rights. They battled for these rights. We want to make sure that they have the right to exercise them if that's what they wish. But if you have to fight with mom to get her to go register to vote, then what are you fighting for? she doesn't have the cognitive capacity maybe to do that. That's different than if she's depressed. You can go get a new voter registration form and bring it to her and fill it out and drop it off at the town hall. Find out, call your town clerk or your city clerk. Find out what are the processes in your town, or actually in her town or his town, because it differs town by town, region by region. Make sure that you're knowing how to help facilitate the process and what they need to do in order to get their vote to count before the election. Now, because you know I love my quotes, I did find some really awesome quotes. If you want some awesome inspiration, go Google or Bing or whatever your favorite search engine is. Go Google the quotes on voting. Voting, quoting, whatever. Here's my favorite one that I found. This is an old African proverb. If you think you are too small to make a difference, try to sleep in a closed room with a mosquito. I love that because I've done that. God, I can remember camping when I was a kid. A Girl Scout camp, 1970 whatever, and we had one mosquito, and the girls in the tent were like, leave the flaps open, because if they're open then he'll fly away and we won't get bitten. I'm like, close the flaps. If I kill one, I can kill one. If I leave them open all night. Anyway, mosquitoes. I'm very sensitive to mosquitoes. Don't like them a bit. They're worse things in life, like snakes. I know, they eat mosquitoes. Anyway, I'm rambling again. This has been one of my favorite shows. I'm so glad for the opportunity to answer a question. Keep them coming. Let me know your questions. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know how you're doing as a confident caregiver. Find out the answers to your questions here and in other shows, numbers 1 through 28. Happy to help you, and happy to have you come check us out on agingcareacademy.org, and you can always reach me again through Instagram at Pamela.Atwood. You can follow me on Twitter at Pam Atwood ALZ, and of course you can always contact me through Hebrew Healthcare at HebrewHealthcare.org. Take care, have a wonderful night, and keep doing what you're doing to be a confident caregiver. Have a good one. Bye.